Um, I feel like I'm being stripped down and prepared for something else. Now that's maybe very personal, but I feel like the Almighty's preparing me to do something big.
Nobody was supposed to see this version of Christ. For centuries, ancient writings describe Jesus as far more than the teacher who healed the sick, forgave sinners, and suffered on the cross. They showed a Christ so different that church leaders treated the texts like a threat. They banned them, hunted copies, burned manuscripts, and warned believers to stay away. For a long time, it worked. Billions lived and died knowing a less terrifying Jesus. But they never found every copy. In Ethiopia, monks kept writing, copying, and keeping the older portrait alive. Now, Mel Gibson is bringing that hidden Christ to the screen, and what he shows could change how millions see Jesus forever. Mel Gibson's biggest gamble. You have to start in 2004, because without what happened then, none of what is coming next makes sense. Mel Gibson made The Passion of the Christ like a film Hollywood was afraid to touch. It was deeply religious, brutally violent, and spoken in languages most viewers could not understand without subtitles. Even the ending was already known before anyone bought a ticket. On paper, it should have been impossible to sell. But that only made the gamble bigger. Gibson directed it, co-wrote it, produced it, and helped pay for it himself. He built the story around the final 12 hours of Jesus' life, from the agony before his arrest to the crucifixion outside Jerusalem. He did not build the film around soft speeches or easy comfort. He built it around pain, the beating, the crown of thorns, the long walk to the cross, the slow collapse of a body pushed past its limit. Even the language choice made the film feel dangerous. The characters spoke Aramaic, Hebrew, and Latin. Most big movies try to remove every wall between the audience and the story. Gibson put a wall there on purpose. Viewers had to read the words while watching one of the most painful scenes in Christian history unfold. Hollywood had every reason to think this would fail. It did not fail. The Passion of the Christ opened in 2004 and became one of the biggest shocks in movie history. It cost about $30 million to make and earned more than $610 million around the world. It became a global event. People argued about it, defended it, attacked it, cried through it, walked out shaken by it, and kept buying tickets. For years, it stood as the highest-grossing R-rated film in North America. It also became known as the highest-grossing independent film ever made. The same project that many people thought was too brutal, too religious, too strange, and too risky, turned into proof that audiences would show up for a serious Jesus film if it felt raw enough to matter. But the film did something else too. It stopped before the story became even harder to show. The Passion ended at the tomb. It showed the suffering. It showed the death. It showed the price being paid in blood. But it did not enter the question that has followed Christianity from the beginning. What happened after Jesus died? That question is easy to ask and almost impossible to film. A crucifixion can be shown with bodies, soldiers, wood, nails, blood, and a crowd. It is terrible, but it belongs to the world we can see. The resurrection is different. It not only raises the question of a body coming back to life, it raises the question of where Christ was between death and the empty tomb, what happened in the unseen world, and why early Christians treated those 3 days as far more than silence. That is where Gibson's next film becomes so strange. Years after The Passion, Gibson began talking about the resurrection of the Christ as something far bigger than a normal sequel. He said he had worked through more than one version of the script. One version was more direct. Another was so strange he called it an acid trip. He said the story could not be told properly unless it began with the fall of the angels. He talked about hell, Sheol, another realm, and a story that stretches from the fall of the angels to the death of the last apostle. That is not the usual shape of a Bible movie. Most people hear resurrection and think of a stone rolled away, frightened guards, grieving followers, and Jesus alive again. Gibson was pointing somewhere much wider and much darker. He was talking about a story where death is not just a sad ending, but a place. Evil is not just human cruelty, but a force. And the resurrection is not just the final scene after the cross, but the moment the unseen world breaks open. And the deeper you look into the older Christian world, the more Gibson's vision starts to make sense. Ethiopia's forgotten Bible world. Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian nations on earth, and its Bible did not develop in the same form many Western viewers know today. For a lot of people, Christianity feels like a story that moved from Jerusalem into Europe, then from Europe into the rest of the world. But that is not the full map. From the beginning, the faith moved in more than one direction. It moved through the Roman world, but it also moved south and east, through Egypt, across the Red Sea, and into Africa. Even the New Testament gives Ethiopia an early place in the story. In Acts chapter 8, Philip meets an Ethiopian court official on the road from Jerusalem to Gaza. The man is reading Isaiah. He wants to understand what the words mean. Philip explains the message of Jesus to him, and the Ethiopian asks to be baptized. That scene does not give every detail of Ethiopia's later church history, but it shows something important. Ethiopia was not outside the early Christian world. It was already close enough to appear in the story from the start. By the 4th century, Christianity had taken root in the kingdom of Aksum. Aksum was a powerful kingdom tied to trade across the Red Sea and the wider ancient world. Its rulers had money, influence, and contact with lands far beyond the Horn of Africa. The man most closely linked with the rise of organized Ethiopian Christianity was Frumentius, a Christian from the Eastern Mediterranean world. He became the first bishop of Aksum and helped shape the church there in the 4th century. That matters because Ethiopia did not receive Christianity as a late copy of Europe's faith. It became one of Christianity's ancient homes. Its churches, prayers, books, art, and holy calendar grew inside its own world. Over time, Ethiopia kept a Christian memory that did not always match the shorter Bible most modern viewers have seen. The sacred language of that memory was Ge'ez. For everyday speech, people moved through many languages over time, but Ge'ez became the language of worship, scripture, and church learning. In Ethiopian churches, it held the kind of place Latin once held in the West. It carried prayers, hymns, gospel readings, and sacred books from one generation to the next. And before printing made books easy to spread, every sacred book had to survive by hand. A page had to be prepared, ink had to be made, letters had to be copied one by one. A book could be damaged by fire, war, water, insects, age, or simple neglect. So when a church keeps copying a text for hundreds of years, that is not a small thing. It means the text stayed alive because people believed it was worth the labor. This is where Ethiopia becomes so important. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition is known for having one of the broadest Bible collections in Christianity. Many Western Protestants know a Bible with 66 books. Catholics know a Bible with 73 books. The Ethiopian Orthodox tradition is often described as having 81 books, though the exact lists can be complicated because different traditions count and arrange books in different ways. That wider collection includes names many viewers have never heard in church: First Enoch, Jubilees, and the Ascension of Isaiah. These are not random internet books. They are ancient writings that survived inside a real church world, in a real sacred language, through real manuscript copying. That is what makes the Ethiopian tradition so powerful for this story. It gives us a doorway into a wider Christian library, not a secret fantasy, not a modern invention, a different stream of Christian memory that kept books many Western believers never met. And once that door opens, the first book that changes the whole mood is Enoch, because it does not present heaven as soft, quiet, or harmless. It opens into fire, judgment, angels, and a figure of Christ far more overwhelming than the one many people grew up seeing.